Welcome to Spokane Talks Live, and it's about 86 degrees outside. Is that right? 89 degrees. Well, we're going to have a hot show and a hot day today, it sounds like. We've got some lineup today, I have to tell you. I am so pleased to finally meet and share with you our Chief of Police, Craig Meidl. And you've probably read about him and seen him and everything else, but we're going to talk about some fun things and interesting things today, not putting out, I was going to say putting out fires, but that's those other guys, isn't it? But you know, you tend to see our police when there's an incident or something that's gone down. And today we're going to have a chance just to talk about what it's like to be a police officer, what it's like to be the chief of police. Lance Kistler from the Human Rights Commission, he's the new chair. He'll be here this week with Pia Hallenberg, and she's going to talk about things in the Spokane Valley City Council. There's an election coming up, primary in a couple of weeks. And then John Reed Arand, who I've worked with, and we'll talk about what he's doing, plus Philip Tyler, or Phil as we want to call him when we're in a very relaxed mode. Hope you're having a good day. Next on Spokane Talks Live.
For the Inland Northwest's most comprehensive sports report, think outside the porch with Spokesman.com. For just 99 cents for the first month, you'll enjoy unlimited digital access to the news and sports news that affect you most. From WSU. From Northwest Preps all the way to the Seahawks, we're the local authority that makes sports in the Inland Northwest different than the rest, better than the rest. On your phone, on your desktop, and on your tablet. Subscribe to the digital experience with Spokesman.com.
I'm Lexi Dyson. I am an archaeological technician for the Tahoe National Forest in California. Archaeology is perfect for me. It kind of combines all of my loves: history, my love of culture, my love of arts and science. As a girl, you don't really get told that science is for you. Like when you look on TV, you always see men in lab coats. I was a freshman at North Central. Randy James was one of my biggest cheerleaders. Randy was one of the first people who told me that you are good at this, you can do this. His favorite phrase that he would say to us that really stuck with me is, Yato, you are the ones. We're the ones who are going to make the difference. We're the ones who are going to make the change. You really start thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, we are. I am the one. I am the one that's going to do this. The work we're doing in Tahoe definitely is going to be here for good. Our purpose here is to preserve things and to make them last, to be here for good, for those future generations to enjoy. I love the variety of it and being able to see things that nobody else really gets to see, and having that touch of history and connection to people in the past. I am helping people by preserving their own heritage, their own resources. One of the things I love about STCU is using the STCU mobile app no matter where I go. It could be here in Tahoe National Forest, I could be back home, or it could be clear away across the country. I've been so impressed by their willingness to help and just be there where I need them to be, basically. It gives me a sense of home, even though I could be 3,000 miles away, 6,000 miles away, which I have done with STCU, and I've never looked back. I'm Lexi Dyson, and STCU is here for good.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Welcome back to Spokane Talks Live, and I am so pleased to have, because I live in the city. I live up on the South Hill, and you are my police chief. So, Craig Meidl, how are you?
I am doing very well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me today, too.
Well, good to have you. We need to have you more often, too. I was joking during the commercial break of, now, how long have you been police chief? And your answer was?
It depends on whether it was the first appointment in August or the second in October. Yeah.
And Craig, all we can do is chuckle about that because we have to kind of move on, don't we?
Right, absolutely.
But I got to ask you, that had to have been, I mean, if I was in your spot, I would be very frustrated sitting waiting for that and all of that. I mean, and I know you wanted the community support and so forth, but the kind of the false start thing and so forth. And I think we were all surprised that there was that appointment, not in that it was you, but that it was not part of the process leading up to it.
Right.
And so, I mean, how did that affect you personally? I mean, it had to take a little bit of a toll, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Really, in terms of when the mayor made the appointment initially, it's like, okay, now we have all these things that we've been putting on hold until we got a chief.
Yeah.
So now let's move forward. Let's implement these. We were really
And then hold it.
right, absolutely. Yeah, we were hesitant because we didn't want to make a bunch of changes that needed to be made and then have a new chief come in and say, "What are you doing? I don't want you doing this."
Right.
So we really delayed on a lot of movement and policies and procedures and all that kind of stuff. So. Excited to finally be able to move forward, and then when the kibosh was put on it, we had to put everything back on the back burner as well. So it also, obviously, when you're competing for a position like this, it takes a lot of energy. So you have to do the day-to-day activities that keep the agency moving forward, but you also have to work on this other portion over here that's very important. So.
And any of us who have applied for a job and one of several candidates and so forth can appreciate only a little bit, because most of us are not in the public eye like you were. You were in that fishbowl for months. I mean, and the others who applied as well. But I mean, I just have to think emotionally that it just tears at you. Did you sleep well at night?
I slept as well as I did
as you
prior
could.
to that, just because there's so many things that keep a chief or an acting chief awake at night. But that whole fishbowl concept is interesting, because I remember within a week of walking down the street for National Night Out, people I didn't even know honking their horn saying, "Hey, chief!" And here 2 weeks before, nobody knew me. Now all of a sudden, everybody knows who I am. So it takes a little paradigm
There's a good
shift.
and bad to that, isn't there?
Yeah, yes, there is. You always have to be on your best behavior, which I try to be anyways. But
that's not what your wife says. No, I'm kidding.
You know what? You can't believe her.
Now,
talk to my girlfriend.
Oh, okay. No, I know. There we go. Starting a rumor, right? I don't know your wife, but she is one of the top people in the police department as well. Now, give me a little history on how long ago you guys have been married and where you met her and that sort of thing, too. We got to give her a little credit.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll make it a real short story, but the true story is when I went through the academy, they posted every prior class that graduated in the hallway.
Okay.
So I had a friend that was from Ellensburg Police Department here visiting, and we looked at the class before, and I was totally joking, not trying to be cocky by any means, but I pointed at her and I said to him, "I'll be dating her within a month." Totally joking. Didn't know if she was married, didn't know if she had a boyfriend, didn't know anything else. And so the joke is it actually ended up taking me 2 months to date her. She was on my first team, so asked her out, and she was naive enough to say yes, and then we dated for 3 years, got married, and
wow.
And here we are, married 20 years.
That is a wonderful story, isn't it?
It is.
Now, does your friend just give you a bad time?
Once in a while he does, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Takes you back and reminds you, our friends tend to do that sometimes.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Well, I got the first question that comes to mind that I have is, what does keep you up at night? Because you have a position that, we all see the headlines, we all see the news stories, and, we're in and out of what's going on. You live and breathe it 24/7. There is no way to really get away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, I would say, for most chiefs, there is no one thing that keeps them awake at night. There is a number of different things. You're always worried about officers getting hurt or worse, killed. You're worried about, officer-involved shootings. You're always thinking budget. You're thinking staffing. You're thinking policies. You're thinking if some critical incident happens, you're really hopeful that the entire message will get out. As opposed to maybe bits and pieces of it that may sensationalize it. So sometimes you can really feel like you're at the mercy of how a story is portrayed, and that can be really, really stressful as well.
Well, yeah, and whatever the first story is, it is next to impossible to correct it.
I agree.
Okay?
Yes.
It just is. And so you want to hold back as much as you can, but you've got people asking questions, you've got people getting information from other sources that are often wrong, but that's what the story is until you correct them. And then you're at the end of the 11 o'clock news at night, not the beginning, to make for the correction part.
Yeah. And I've really made a point on every critical incident to try to be as open as I possibly can. There's some things, in investigations where you can't reveal that at this point. Once the investigation is over, we can talk about anything and everything. But as much as I can, I try to be very open from the front end, but also prefacing it with saying, this is preliminary, this may change, and making sure I get that out there.
Right. I had someone refer to some of the TV media in town, and if I said who it was, you'd recognize it. But they said, well, we could always use those children down at the TV station, meaning the reporters. And the fact is, they are young folks, and they don't have the seasoning that, not that you're my age at all, but that you and I have, to know maybe to step back from a situation. And we see, I think nationally, when you see the shootings and other kinds of things, everybody's jumping to conclusion. And having served on a jury and seen jury reports and so forth over the years, I've really learned, and part of that's probably my age, that take a step back. And what you first hear isn't necessarily, and probably not, the full story. And not to jump to conclusions, you know, there was a police officer in shooting or whatever, that we need to step back and let the right people do the investigation. And I know with the sheriff's department and the state patrol that you don't even really investigate your own people. You have someone else do it, so it's objective and so forth. Yeah. And I know I've asked Ozzy, because Ozzy does a show here once a week, what it must be like to go out to one of your policemen who's been involved in an officer shooting, and you can only say so much because there needs to be that investigation and everything else, and it's kind of hard, I'm guessing, for you as it is for Ozzy to say, you know, you're going to be okay. I mean, all of that, because I hear, from what I've been told by officers and by Ozzy, that there is just so much pressure on the fact that you've had to pull the trigger. Yeah,
you hit the nail on the head. You know, as the CEO of any organization, you know, your employees really are your most valuable asset. They really are, and how you treat them, interact with them. And it's challenging where you want to go and affirm them, you want to comfort them, but at some level you also have to be somewhat careful until the investigation is over. So it's really an art. There's no science to how can I show support with this person without necessarily...
Who's going through an emotional time. Especially if they've killed somebody.
Yes.
I mean, I don't care. Any of us have done something like that. We would be emotionally torn apart. Okay.
Right. I agree with that. Absolutely.
And then you get a police officer who is going to be scrutinized beyond recognition, if you will, in today's society. How do you... I see all of the national, and I want to bring it down to local, but all of the national bad things being said by some folks about police officers and so forth. How do you keep up the morale with your men and women at the Spokane Police Department?
Probably one of the best things we can do as leaders, and it can be a struggle at times based on my schedule.
Yes.
But be present. Go to roll calls. Go to the team meetings, the unit meetings. Let them ask questions.
Not be that guy in the office at the end of the hall.
Right. And it's easy to do. I mean, and there's seasons where I don't make it there for weeks and weeks like I would like to, because I'm just going meeting to meeting.
Yeah.
But be present. Be there so that they have questions or frustrations. They can voice those. It's also one of the things I learned from my stint in internal affairs. You know, they used to refer to internal affairs as jokingly the rat squad. You know, you're one of those now.
Yeah.
But really, how you overcome that is how you also treat people, just in the hallway, in general conversation. You listen to them. So that's one of the things we do. We get a lot of letters of appreciation from the community, a lot.
Yes.
And I try to keep every single one of them, and then we send them out to the agency as well. And we especially take note of people who go out of their way to go into a cop shop or to fill out a form, and we say, this person went the extra mile.
Yes.
They didn't just wait for the next opportunity. They saw a law enforcement officer say, hey, you guys are doing great. So we try to constantly show them, you do have a tremendous amount of support from the community. You can't allow this dialogue over here to affect what the reality is behind the scenes.
Because they're going to be loudmouths out there. I don't care what the issue is, but they're going to be loudmouths. That brings up a question to me. What can we as citizens, as taxpayers, owners, if you will, of our city government, and you're part of the city government, what can we do to help the police in our community?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, there's actually a few...
I want a good answer.
Yeah. I'm not promising a good answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
I'm kidding.
You know, there's a couple things. One is, let those folks that you elect know what your wishes are for the department.
Okay.
You know, and tell them this is what we would like to see. And then it's up to those folks that get elected to decide, do we have the resources? And if not, are we willing to pay for those resources to meet whatever the desire is from the community? So one of the important things is make sure you're being heard by those people that we elected to represent us.
Okay.
And then also, you know, officers, when someone comes up to them and says, hey, officer, I just want to thank you for your job. A lot of times the officers are, it's embarrassing. They
Yeah.
may say thank you, but it's like, oh, I thought he would take that. It's just embarrassing for us. But I can tell you, every time someone says that,
They still like it.
they still appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's good to really good to hear, because I've wondered. You know, I feel a little awkward in doing it. It's like servicemen and women and so forth. But we got to quit shying away from that, because you're there to protect us. We've asked you to do a job that none of us want to do when it comes down to it. Well, we want to be protected. I think back a couple years ago, I was helping a friend run for state office, representative here in the Spokane area, and he talked about safe streets. And I said, well, wait a second, because he was a cop, okay? And I said, that's how you speak. We homeowners, we family people out there talk about safe neighborhoods. Safe streets, I get that, but that's more of a term that I would expect from police and sheriff's deputies, not necessarily from my standpoint. I want a safe neighborhood.
Right,
I want where my kids can walk to the park and be safe and so forth. And I said, you kind of have to learn to speak what the voters, you know, if you want to get elected,
Absolutely.
kind of thing.
Words have meaning, so
Yeah.
you have to speak the words that are going to have the meaning that they'll understand.
Right. Yeah. I got to ask a question, because I know Sheriff Ozzie talks about this often, and that's the jail situation, and that's the property crime situation, and we've all read and seen in the last couple of months that what Ozzie's been saying. I'm going to guess that you're saying the same kind of thing, and that is, you know, you have limited dollars and the property crimes get down the list, certainly compared to murders and rapes and other kinds of violent crime, okay? I completely get that. But the property crimes are a starting point for many people. And are you finding that you have to arrest people and then let them off because you can't even take them to jail?
Yeah, you know, I was reading something today from someone in the community that had posted something about, you know, this catch and release policy. Yeah. And so it's not to be political, it is a complicated issue. However, there's no one thing that's going to fix it. One is, you know, the jail is well over 30 years old. Yes. It was built when we probably had 3/4 of the population we have.
Right.
The property crimes are at the low end of the spectrum for sentencing. They want to, and they should, save those beds for violent criminals who are actually hurting people. You also go back 10 years ago when the state was looking at how much money they're spending on the criminal justice system, and they realized there's a lot of money here. So what they did is they took away community supervision of property crimes offenders. So when someone gets out of prison now, and if they
go back to their profession,
there's no community supervision. They don't have to report monthly. They don't have to take, you know, the tests and all that kind of good stuff that goes with it. So we lost that supervision of property crimes offenders. And jail typically does tend to be on either critical or emergency booking status every day, which means a lot of the warrants either they're not going to take because they can't, and through no fault of the jail.
Right.
They only have so many beds. Either they can't take them, or they'll take them, but they then book them and then give them a new court date and they let them out right away.
It's almost like, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah, it's and I get it. You know that I know you've heard the phrase that we will never arrest our way out of this situation.
Right.
And it has always been my contention that you have to have the carrot and the stick. You have to have the carrot for those people who want help and want to change their lives.
Right, right.
But if not, some people,
there needs to be consequence.
They need to sit in a jail and realize, I don't want to do this anymore. You have to have both.
Yeah. Yeah, but to go there for a day or half a day and get a meal or two and maybe overnight sleep and then back on the street causing problems again. And then haven't we had some carjackings recently?
We have, yes. Yeah. We've had a few of those recently as well. And it goes to what you had mentioned, where if you look at our violent offenders, a big portion of those started out with property crimes.
Yes.
And then they evolved into, so you go from a vehicle theft to, well, now this person's in the vehicle. I'm going to steal it while they're in the vehicle. Now you've just committed a carjacking. And it just progresses from there.
Wow. Yeah, it's tough. And you're right when you said there is no one answer and no easy answer. How are we doing in terms of the typical cop versus population, the percentage, you know, that kind of thing? How are we doing in Spokane? Where do we sit?
So, you know, that one of the things with the FBI did a study through the Department of Justice that basically said how many officers per thousand, what's the ratio. They also added the caveat, you can't use that to justify staffing, because there's some, if you live in, let's just say you live in Mercer Island.
Yes.
People there, they're fairly well off. They're not going to necessarily be stealing things like someone may in a community that has a lot more poverty.
Right.
So somewhere like Mercer Island isn't
But
going
it gives
to
some kind of benchmark.
It does. So yeah, we're right in the neighborhood of about 1.5 officers per 1,000.
Okay.
You know, you'll see some cities, mainly on the East Coast, where there are 2 officers per 1,000.
Okay.
So just as you move more towards the West Coast, you're going to get closer to that 1.5 mark.
Okay. What's it like in recruiting police officers these days?
You know, it's getting more challenging. I will tell you,
so.
for every person that we hire to go into the basic law enforcement academy, we go through about 12 to 15 candidates. These are people who want to be police officers,
right?
But because of things that have happened in the past, we can only take one for about every dozen. Even for laterals, those who are working for other agencies, we take maybe 1 out of every 5 that apply.
Really?
And the reason we do is, like you'd mentioned earlier, you trust us as a community to keep you safe. We can't have an officer going into a business at 2 in the morning that's been burglarized and start looking around and saying, oh, there's a candy bar and there's a TV. So, you know, we are very, very cautious about opening the door to who we let into the agency.
Right.
So I will tell you that we're at full numbers. I know the sheriff's office is struggling.
Right.
We are not at all.
Okay, good.
But we are exhausting our lists like we've never have before.
Okay.
So
you're going through it very fast.
We are, yeah.
Wow. And I think, and are you getting as many people applying today?
No, you know.
And is part of that, because of what we hear nationally, is part of that the pay? Is part of that my wife or my husband won't let me be a policeman because it's dangerous?
Yeah.
I mean, what are some of the reasons?
You know, I would say all of those reasons. Okay. You know, in Spokane, our officers make I believe our officers make a good wage in Spokane, you know, and the benefits are good as well. So I don't believe it's the wages or the benefits. But you do have this national dialogue now where you'll see an incident where sometimes the officer made a mistake, sometimes it's being portrayed a certain way. And it's played over and over again. So what I am hearing is that some people are asking themselves, why would I want to subject myself to that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not worth it, you know. And then also you just, you know, as you're getting a different generation as well, you're not seeing that same attitude of serving your community necessarily. So again, there's still a lot of millennials out there that apply, definitely, but we're not seeing the same quantity that we used to.
Yeah. How is we're on almost the last question because we're going to run out of time, unfortunately. We need to have you back a lot more times. How is the marijuana issue affecting your officers on the street and crimes?
Yeah, you know, in terms of property crimes, we're not seeing a huge increases necessarily in property crimes. People don't usually rob a business to get money for marijuana. What we are seeing is an increase in collisions that are marijuana related. I'll tell you, I belong to it's the DEA, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Agency. And they came out with a report that
I'm sure there's an acronym for it.
Yes.
Right?
But
I won't ask you for it.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, what it showed was that in 1/3 of collisions in Washington State, there was marijuana in the system.
Yes.
And in 10%, they were over the legal limit for what they could have in their system. Now, these are fatalities.
Okay.
So 10% of our fatalities, the driver has over the legal amount of marijuana in their system. And it's hard to test. There's no breath test right now that we can use. And so you really have to bring in what we call a DRE, a drug recognition expert. And they'll measure blood pressure, pupils, and it takes really a couple hours just to determine, do I have enough to charge?
Right. Any last thing that you want to talk about? Because we're out of time. Yeah, this is awful that we're running through the time so fast.
You covered all the food groups, so I think this was great.
All the food groups? Well, I eat the starches, okay? All right. Hey, you guys have to stay in good shape, don't you? Yeah, my son is a fireman out at Fairchild, and he has to stay in good shape. But his old man, you know, eats the cake at night and so forth. Craig, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do for our community, for taking this leadership role, because with it comes a lot of folks who will bitch and complain and everything else, and I get that. But for you to stand up to do that, thank your wife, and thank all of the men and women who serve us every single day. So thank you very much for coming. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Lance Kistler without a tie today. He's chair of the Human Rights Commission. Oh, he brought a tie. We'll be right back.
Washington and Spokane voters are famously independent, voting for the person and not the party. Voters want to know the person behind the policy. Interested in learning more about your candidates? That's why we created Meet the Candidate. Join host Sulani Madsen as she interviews 2017 election candidates for local office, on the experiences that have shaped their lives. Meet the Candidate is brought to you as a community service by the Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, North by Northwest Digital, We Believe, We Vote, and the McGarry Law Firm, the landlord's attorney. All Meet the Candidate conversations are posted on our website, SpokaneTalksOnline.com.
Welcome back to Spokane Talks Live, and I got a friend here in the studio, Lance Kistler. You wear, I don't know how many hats, and that's probably why you're a bit bald up here.
Sometimes ties.
Sometimes, yeah, only in pictures. Now, I gave you a bad time was it last night or this morning?
I think it was last night.
Yeah, because I actually saw a picture of you with a white shirt and tie.
Yes.
And I have never seen you in person in a white shirt and tie.
I know.
And
I guess we need to hang out more.
Yeah, I guess so. And I said, well, and then you gave me a bad time back. Well, maybe I'll wear a tie or bring a tie. So you did.
I did.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
thank
your
you.
day job is STCU,
That's
one of
correct.
our major sponsors here at Spokane Talks Online. You wear, as I said, a number of hats. And one of them is you just got appointed as chair of the Spokane Human Rights Commission.
Well,
did I get
close? Close. I'm just a commissioner. I'm not the chair. Yeah,
Oh, I thought you.
yeah.
Oh, when do you become the chair?
Well, once I run a campaign and get elected, I suppose.
I thought you were the chair. Well, then we don't have time to talk.
Yeah,
to you.
yeah.
You're just.
I'm just a commissioner.
So tell me about this. Why did you say yes to serving, and what's it all about? What are some of the things that you hope to accomplish?
Questions. Yeah. So I believe in being involved in the community. I think it's part of your civic duty and
oh my gosh, you're
responsibility.
Involved in everything.
Well, and so I had a couple of commitments nearing the end of their terms. So serving on the INBA board, that's ending at the end of this year. I will have fulfilled 2 full terms there.
Oh wow.
And then and we have term limits. And then Leadership Spokane, I was ending my term at the end of June there. So I saw kind of this freeing of time coming up on my schedule.
Oh, and you have to fill it.
And I have to fill it, but I made the promise to myself that I wanted some kind of a net zero impact of some sort. So I wanted to take something on. I wanted to be involved and engaged, but I didn't necessarily need to fill the entire gap by taking on 1, 2, 3 things.
Yes.
So I saw that this position was available, and they actually ended up having 2 commissioner positions that became available, and thought, it's close to my heart in terms of there are definitely populations that don't always have a voice or are underrepresented. And being a member of one of those populations myself, I thought this is another area for me to be engaged and to serve not only my community, but the community at large, and do so in a different way. I haven't had a local government appointment. I've served on state boards and commissions in the past, but have never served on a local one. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity to really make a difference locally here in Spokane and kind of continue down the path of serving the community. So
maybe we should talk just for 30 seconds about what is the job of the
commission.
Yes.
Yeah. So the job is to really ensure that there is that folks have a voice in the community. Thank you. Great talking points.
Yeah, well, that's what you sent me.
Yeah. So we there's all the city residents throughout the city of Spokane. We want to make sure that no one is discriminated against unjustly. We only make advisory. We only serve in an advisory capacity and make recommendations to the city council. So we don't have any kind of authority in terms of enforcing things or taking action on stuff. But we're there more as really as an advisory body. Now, there is actually a state commission, and they can actually accept complaints. So if you had an issue come up, they actually have a complaint process that they can follow up on. We can't, currently we can't handle those. Right. So we have to kind of push that off to the state.
You know, the commission, I think back to, and let me see if I can get this straight, there was some confrontation, if you will, with Mike Fagan some time ago about some things that he was talking about, and the chairman stood up and some other members and turned their back. I think it was the vice chair that wouldn't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. That tends to polarize things.
Right.
And I know you're a person to bring people together versus that. How can you help make a change in that so that
Well, I'm hoping so. In fact,
you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not saying it right,
Yeah.
but
I had to.
We're too polarized as a society on everything right now.
And so that was actually part of. I had to fill out an application and meet with the commission, and then I met with the mayor, and then I met, spoke in front of city council.
Okay.
They asked me
and
some
they still
questions.
took you.
And they still took me. I know. And I'm trying to remember. I think I wore a tie that day.
Twice.
So part of what I shared in all of those instances was that I believe that we need to make sure that we're not always talking in front of and having conversations with the same people.
Yes.
Because then you're kind of preaching to the choir.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
In that there's other ideologies, there's other beliefs, there's other perspectives that need to be taken into account.
And you may not even agree with it.
And you may not agree with it, and that's okay. But if we aren't having those conversations with those people, then we're not really
accomplishing
the needle.
anything.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And so I believe that one of the things that I can help do is try to identify what are the ways that we can get in front of additional folks or bring those people to us.
Right.
So quick plug, we do meet the fourth Tuesday of each month from 5:30 to 7. It's in the city council chambers. They're open meetings.
Okay.
The agenda is published far enough in advance because we are Open Public Meeting Act. We have to comply with that. So anyone is welcome. There's time for public commentary as well. So not only is this an open invitation to attend the meetings, but if you have a group, an organization, a charity, nonprofit, whatever it is, association, that you think could benefit from having us come and participate, I'm going to say we'll find a way to make that happen, one form or another. So I definitely do believe that we need to take a look at how we represent ourselves, how we engage the community, and how we can really foster dialogue. I think one of the things that the commission started doing recently was this idea around courageous conversations. Picking topics and really having an open forum on those things. Well, once again, if those open forums are only with the same people, the same audience, then you're not really going anywhere.
Stay home and stand in front of the mirror.
Right.
You know,
exactly. Unfortunately.
Yeah. And you and I don't agree on
everything.
On everything,
Right.
But the fact is, we can have a conversation.
Right.
And I think that's where we need to go in this community. I'm going to have Phil Tyler on a little bit later. And he, I think, emailed me back a couple months ago because I raised the question about where are we going with everyone just bitching and complaining. I don't know how else to say it, but that's pretty straightforward. And he said, I hope we're not past the point of no return.
Right.
Because we need to be civil and that's why I brought up the issue about how do you conduct a conversation if you're turning your back on people. Give them a little respect. You may not agree with them. I mean, poor Mike is 6-1 on everything.
Right.
You know,
it's unfortunate
It's 6-1 on everything.
Right.
You know,
it's unfortunate because you know what happens in those circumstances is that people do get very emotional, and it's easy to give into your emotions. And and we're human beings. We make those types of mistakes. You can, you know, I've had instances where I've looked back and said, you know, I really could have handled that better. But
I never have that on Facebook.
Right. But I do want to say I think that happens across the board.
I think you're right.
And so I'm hopefully I might be able to help foster that with everyone that engages.
You know,
with the
I
Human
believe you
Rights
can.
Commission.
I really believe you can, because I've seen you
you
in operation and our friendship over a couple years and everything else. So. We're out of time. Can you believe?
Yeah.
And are you going to tie your tie on live TV?
Oh, gosh.
No,
I don't know about that.
I'm kidding. Lance, thank you. Thank you, STCU, for all your support for all the things that we do, and for you taking on another responsibility in our community.
Sure.
So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right,
Appreciate
good to see you. We're going to take a
Likewise.
quick break. We'll be right back with Pia Hallenberg right after this. Welcome back to Spokane Talks Live, and I hope you're having a really good day today. Pia Hallenberg from the Spokesman Review is taking Lance's seat here. You caught us. Our commercial break was a little shorter than we expected. Because Lance and I got to talking and so forth.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I'm good.
Yeah, everything going okay?
Yeah, busy times.
This is like second week back now, isn't it?
It is second week back, yes. And I had...
Are you caught up? Of course you are. I know you're caught up.
I can share a little story because people enjoy the sort of, you know, how you make sausage, right?
Yeah.
The backside of media. I was working on a story about how difficult it's become to hire law enforcement officers, like what you were just talking to the police chief about.
Right.
I filed it before I went on vacation, and it disappeared.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of work, you know, it's just part of, and I had...
And all those great quotes and everything else you had in there.
I had some notes. I had, you know, some stuff, but not all of it. So I have spent
The secret is to back up.
Oh, I have backup.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
the backup didn't back up.
Well, I didn't copy the story out of the system. We have a huge, fancy publishing system, you know. Anyway, so I've spent the last 3 days like re-interviewing people and calling people, going,
didn't we talk about
I'm
this,
really
Pia?
sorry I wasted your time. I need to waste more of your time, you know. But I think I have it. It was just, it's just one of those things that happens.
I hear you.
Anyway.
I hear you. Hey, tell me about the Spokane Valley City Council and a few races going on out there.
Yeah, I think we should talk about the races, actually. Part of my whole reconstructing of a story is that I didn't get to go cover the meeting last night.
Oh, Lord.
Because my bosses were like, you better just stay here and work on that. So I did that. There are 2 contested races in the Spokane Valley City Council.
Right.
And we wrote about the spokesman. We covered both of them last week.
Right.
The last story ran on Sunday, and that's the one that has Pam Haley. And let's see if we can do this. So Pam Haley is the incumbent, right?
I learned not to throw a name out.
Yeah, because then I go blank.
Yeah.
She's got Pam Haley. Rob Sampson is one of the challengers. Ingema Woods is one of the challengers, and also Angie Beam.
Yes.
So Pam, for some reason, has 3 challengers. She does not know why she got 3 challengers.
Yeah. Luck of the draw.
Yes.
Yeah.
She says she feels special because she got, all that. It just really surprised her. She was very honest about it, and she's like, it really surprised me. 2 of those candidates, 2 of the challengers, however, have some criminal history, and I don't.
What,
think
did they work for a newspaper?
No,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think. I don't think I've covered a race. I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't think I've ever had a race that
You're
had.
not that old to be doing this for 20 years.
I have been doing this for 20 years. I don't think I've ever had a race that had two people with criminal backgrounds.
Right.
So we do this.
How serious are they?
Well, one of them is 4 counts of attempted murder.
Oh.
In the 90s.
Okay.
And that's Woods, that's Ingmar Woods, but he's been very upfront about the fact that he is a recovering addict and that he spent time in jail and things were difficult and complicated, and he has really, really turned his life around.
Good,
I will say that he's become an educator. He went back to school.
Right.
He had that incident and then another incident a few years later that was sort of the rock bottom point.
Yeah.
So he has really turned his.
Sometimes you got to go to the bottom.
He has really turned his life around. However, we cannot ignore the fact that there were serious charges, even those many years ago. And it's interesting.
And it's public record.
Yes, but it's interesting that some of those voter sites, check your candidate, whatever, they only go back 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at Ingmar on checkyourcandidate.com or whatever it is, he shows up clean.
Oh, okay.
Because this was in the 90s.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So just kind of keep that in mind. If it matters to you, he had, like I said, he really has turned his life around.
But if they're being covered by the Spokesman Review, you got it taken care of.
Oh yeah.
So
we
don't have to go to those sites so we can read the code.
No, but people do, and because
right.
they figure it's a shortcut, and it says here they validate they do background checks, and they do, but only for 10 years.
What about Rocky?
Robert Sampson is a little more. Has never actually been convicted of a crime.
Okay.
As far as I can tell.
Okay.
Was involved in a furniture business in Kentucky. The business went under. He left for Florida. He was picked up in Florida by the state patrol, I think, or the local police.
Okay.
As a fugitive because he still owed money back in Kentucky. And it's a complicated story. There are other charges, traffic tickets. There are some domestic charges in Stevens County, but they stem from like a very contentious divorce, and he now has custody over his daughter.
Right.
What concerns me more, actually, and I just figured this out yesterday, is he runs a cab company in the Valley. And one of his main platform is to get rid of Uber and Lyft, the ride-sharing programs. Right. There are some, he's licensed to drive a cab in Spokane Valley and in Spokane, but he's not licensed to own a cab company in Spokane. The whole cab thing is regulated. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Yeah, and he can't drive people to the airport because he doesn't have a contract with the airport either. So I'm a little concerned about some of all that stuff. It just looks weird.
What does he do? Drop him off a mile from the airport and say walk?
No, he goes out there. People tell me that he still goes out there. He's just not supposed to. Anyway. So there's always something else. And Angie Beam is, she was one of the organizers of the Women's March here in Spokane this spring.
Okay.
And I really have not, I don't know her. She's, what happens, unfortunately, is when things are as complicated as they were with the two candidates, then the other candidates kind of maybe don't get as much attention because we're like, holy cow, we need to figure this out.
Right.
But she is she's disabled, but she used to work for a lab here at one of the hospitals, and says that it was the presidential election that really kind of spurred her into action.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other race?
The other race is Rod Higgins, the mayor, and it's he's being challenged by Al Merkel. And now I'm blank, of course. Who's the other guy?
I'm not going to say anything because last time I did and I threw you off completely.
No, I know this. I just wrote the story. It'll come to me in a minute. But Rod Higgins is the sitting mayor.
Yeah.
And you know how that works, right? That they pick a mayor on the council and all that.
Right,
yeah. So he's the sitting mayor. So he's being challenged by Al Merkel, who is also a newcomer to politics, and Christopher Jackson.
Yes, that's
who is Sally Jackson's grandson.
And if you don't know who Sally Jackson is, you have not lived in Spokane for the
last...
Well,
actually, I don't think you should be allowed to vote in the Valley if you don't know who she is.
Yeah, well, probably, I think there's that rule, subchapter S.
It should be part of your, citizen test out there. But, Rob Higgins has run, he managed the city council last year when there were some very stormy times and people left and there was allegations of this, that, and the other thing. And he just kind of sat through all that. And I gave him a hard time about not saying much.
Yes.
Because he really does not say much. during the meetings. And he said, well, that's just...
And from my point of view, might not be bad for a politician to shut up once in a while. I'm
well,
making a joke, you know what I mean.
Well, then you can't be held accountable for anything,
no, that's right?
Because you didn't say anything. But I'm not saying that's the case. But he's definitely been able to kind of narrow things down and just get the council through a difficult time. The two other people are young. Christopher Jackson just finished his PhD in psychology. He's very community-minded, community-oriented, wants to rally people.
I think that's in his DNA.
I think it is, and I believe he's also one of the youngest candidates. And the last one, Al Merkel, is also new to politics, at least in the Valley, and is. I believe he's a contract officer for the VA, if I remember correctly.
I think so, right.
So he's really like into the, let's drill down on the budget and find out what's going on and renegotiate better deals if we can.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Well, and people are voting already. I voted. Have you voted?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
And the last day to vote is August 1st, and get it in the mail before 5 if you can. So, or drop it off at a post office, or not a post office, but a library.
There's a box over at the downtown library. I don't know where they are otherwise. They must be at other libraries too, I think.
I'm thinking so. They usually are. Yeah, we're running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. I brought your newspaper.
Great. How was the trip across the street? Okay.
It's still good. Now they're putting down new asphalt.
Okay. Whose fault? Never mind. We won't talk. We won't go there. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Spokane Talks Live. Now, today, I have one of my old bosses, because I worked for you a few years ago. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah?
I'm not that old.
No, I know. I am, though. Okay. John Rand, when I knew you before, you were running Fox 28.
Right.
And then you left to go down to Boise and helped Brian Brady with a number of stations and so forth. I'm not sure what it is you're doing anymore. Okay, what do you do?
Well, I'll start out by saying I thought I retired 2 years ago in May of 2015. As it turns out, what I looked at as retirement, my boss called the beginning of a sabbatical.
Okay. Bosses tend to do that, don't they?
So the past couple of years, I have continued to work for him on a limited basis, handling just small elements of my old job.
Okay.
But I really left a couple of years ago as I had a desire to attend Bible college at the tender age of 62 years old.
Wow. Now, where did this come from?
You know, it was just something that got instilled in me 4 or 5 years ago. I just started having a desire to do this and started planting the seeds with my boss to say, I want to go away here at some point. I want to do this, and we need to pave the way to do that. And it took more than 2 years after I told him that I wanted to do that for us to get me into that
He always
position.
had another project for you, didn't he?
He kept buying television stations.
Oh, well, that will do it too, yes.
And but we got to a point where I said, you know, I have to go now. I really have this drive to do this.
Yes.
So I left the position, the corporate position, in May of 2015, and in the fall of that year, enrolled at and began attending Charis Bible College in Woodland Park, Colorado.
Oh, okay. Now, how long was that?
It's a 2-year program.
Oh, okay.
And I actually went through the whole program and graduated in May of this year, the middle of May of this year. So. I are now a college graduate.
Okay, good. Well, what's more important is that part of that process was to go kind of on a mission or something. I'm not probably using the right terminology, but tell me about that, because I think it's fascinating what you've done.
Well, one of the requirements of graduation, again, it was a 2-year program, and in the second year, all students are not just asked to, but required to go on a foreign mission trip.
Wow.
And so in January of this year, I went with a group of about 20 people to Costa Rica.
Wow. Yeah. Now, how did you pick Costa Rica? I mean, was it literally just putting your hand on the map, or was there something that drew you there?
There were, a list of 15 or 20 locations around the world you could pick, but then ultimately the school made the decision about which people were going to go to which place. And I really didn't know in the beginning what purpose it was for me. I'm sort of a purpose-driven guy, and somebody tells me to go dig a ditch, and I want to know why I'm supposed to dig a ditch.
Yeah.
When I got on the airplane in Denver to head for Costa Rica, I didn't know what my purpose or mission was supposed to be there, but I knew that there was something I'd learned while I was there.
Okay, and I'm going to take a wild guess here, that you learned what your purpose was.
I did.
And what was it?
Well, we went into an indigenous village, or tribal village, I should say. I had no idea there were tribes like that in Costa Rica. I always think of it as being Amazon or Africa or something like that.
And not the Amazon where you order stuff.
Right. So they took us by bus inland from the Caribbean side of Costa Rica into a tribal village where people live very, very humbly off the land.
Yeah.
The rest of Costa Rica considers them to be ill-educated and living in poverty. They don't think of themselves as that way, but they live very, very humbly. They raise plantains, sugarcane, and live off the land and barter and trade and sell their goods. And they just are very, very simple people.
Wow.
And it was at a service that we did one afternoon where the lady pastor stood up and said, well, we're believing that God wants us to have a new church built here by 2018. And just minutes after that, I figured out that was actually something I was supposed to be a part of helping with. Yes.
Wow.
So never having done anything like that before, I came back to where the school was in Colorado, and we put together a website to help promote it and share it with people.
Hope you had somebody under 30 to help you.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what we do when we get a little older, isn't it?
And then begin raising funds, and believe it or not, the goal was all that was needed was about $14,000.
Okay.
Within 3 weeks, however, we'd raised over $16,000 and ultimately ended up at $17,000.
Nice.
So following up to this, in the middle of May, a couple of days after I graduated from Bible college, my wife and I went back to Costa Rica to help being part of building this church.
Oh my gosh. Well, for our viewers and listeners, we're going to do, after this program finishes the live portion, we're going to do a half hour on this where we can really spend some time and show some more pictures and everything. But John, number one, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Number two, it's fun to see us as we get a little older, and I'm so much older than you at 71, to find some passion and feel like you're making a contribution. Yes. And that really does mean something, doesn't it?
It really does.
When we can do that. And you're to do that, I think, is terrific. So I look forward to learning more.
Great.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Phil Tyler right after this. Welcome back to Spokane Talks Live. And in the studio is Mr. Coffee, Phil Tyler. And Phil, I want you to look at your title. Do you see what it says, who you are? Coffee drinker. Yes. Okay. Because on Facebook, that's about all I see of you is one coffee shop or another. And by the way, you haven't invited me in a long time. But I see you're drinking coffee. I'm going to guess
Tom Sawyer coffee?
Yes, and I'm going to guess it's black coffee.
It is, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah. I'm a bit tired and a little stressed.
Tired?
But I'm good.
Why are you stressed? Just because there's a wedding coming up in a month? Less than a month? Okay.
28 days.
28 days, but who's counting,
But who's
right?
counting, yes.
Now, how is the bride doing? Is she doing okay?
She is doing wonderful.
Okay.
The groom is akin to the television show I've never seen called Bridezilla.
Okay, yeah, you had mentioned that before. And so this is becoming every day, every hour, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now you haven't been here for a while, so I got to ask a couple of questions. A few months ago, you resigned from the NAACP as president.
That's correct.
Yeah. Why?
Well, there's a few reasons, Kent. One of the reasons was I wanted to get my affairs in order and get ready for this marriage. I knew it was going to take a long time to get this wedding done. But really, more importantly for me is I wanted to take my message to a broader level, to a broader audience. And I was really having to balance the message and the narrative and how that
and within the confines, if you will,
within the confines
NAACP,
of the
right?
the guidelines of the organization,
right.
The bylaws, etc.
Right.
And I really had a long talk with not only my fiance but my mother. And we've talked about this before. She's a fine Southern lady, and she said, "Boy," she says, "I think you have a broader appeal, and you need to go chase that."
Yeah. I'm wondering how much of the old thinking of the not only the national, but even the local NAACP was maybe causing some challenges for you. You know, just you and I have talked about organizations in town, and I talked with Lance about the Human Rights Commission and so forth of this separation and turning our backs on people and everything else. And I know you're one to bring people together.
Sure.
And that has, I'm going to guess, that really pulled you apart.
It did. It really challenges your values and who you are.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that in our current political tenor, which we haven't seen in a long time, it is creating this identity politics, which is changing the identity of Americans. We really are a people that rally together when the chips are down.
Right.
One of the things that I've always
kind of wonder right now how that might happen.
Yeah, you know, and I keep a challenge coin in my pocket, and I didn't bring it today. It's in my work pants. It's a 9/11 challenge coin.
Okay.
And it reminds me that even when the chips are down and we have a horrible situation going on, Americans can rally together.
Yes.
And so when I come up against those things, I have to fall back on the values, and I really think it's important to have relationships and connections, and this is why we do our Peaceful Communities Roundtable.
Right. Now, I heard that part of the reason that you resigned was because you're going to run for something.
That's correct.
Okay, so do you? I'm going to ask a series of questions. You have in mind something, right?
I do.
Okay, and you're going to tell us today what that is, right?
No.
Okay, it's local office?
It is local office,
okay.
yes, sir.
Okay.
I believe that all politics are local.
Yeah, okay. So you're going to run for mayor?
No.
County commissioner?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. So I didn't get a flat no. Okay. Well, you've done some work in the past with the county too.
Sure.
So you kind of know about the county. Not so sure, honestly, being mayor and being the guy or the gal that is in charge of potholes is particularly appealing. You know what I mean? Because
you're
to blame for the snow, and you're to
Sure.
blame for the potholes and everything else.
But a good leader takes more of the blame and gives more of the credit to his
and
people
I
that do the
know
work.
you responded one day, I think, in an email back to me when I sent something to you and said, "How are we ever going to bring our people, all of us, together?" And your response was something to the effect of, "Kent, I don't know if we've gone so far that's going to happen anytime soon." Is that still the feeling?
No, I think that, when we truly sit down with one another and have these conversations, I think we develop a connection. We develop a coordination, a constructive dialogue. We get away from this belief set of dichotomy, and we get to the issues versus the individuals. And when we can do that, like this, over this,
right.
I think you really can understand another point of view.
Yeah.
I think quite often.
And it doesn't mean you have to agree with it.
Absolutely not.
Either.
Absolutely not. I think that our nation is predicated on.
But
not
why do we
agreeing with
have
one
to
another.
yell at people? And I say yell at people, meaning on Facebook and other forms of not just yelling for the sake, but there's so much of that going. And I catch myself doing that on Facebook. It's so easy to take on the Democrats or the Republicans or somebody, as a group, and you go, wait a second, not everybody's like that,
Correct.
and I think we got to kind of move past that. We're running out of time. I've got to ask you, you're doing some work over at Gonzaga. What's that about?
Yeah,
you have a uniform, and I noticed you happen to have your selfie and take selfies all the time.
Sure.
All these nice young ladies and young gentlemen over there.
Sure.
You ready for them all to come back to campus?
Give me another month.
Okay. Well, then that's about all you're going to get, too.
It's a wonderful place to work. I work as a campus security officer on there, and I really like to promote the good work that it does.
Yes.
And it's a entity, the Campus Safety and Public Security Office, that really does a good job balancing rehabilitation versus punishment. I mean, we don't want to send our young adults down the path of criminal justice when we can just correct an error and coach them along.
Right. Do you know who Tommy Williams is?
I do.
Yeah, I had him in here, and what an incredible young man, and
younger
what
than we
he's
are.
doing for this community. And
Very
so forth.
impressive. Very impressive. Matter of fact, we had him before the Better Health Together board.
Yeah.
In his idea for oral health, which is very important in the community.
Right. And I saw him on Facebook, and you know what impressed me was the pictures of his family and his boys, and they're always smiling. And I thought, here's a husband and wife team that are growing up their kids, and they all look like they're enjoying it and having fun. Isn't that nice to see? Because
Isn't that what we see every day?
Well, I hope so, but not always.
No,
unfortunately,
because the negative is projected.
Because if it bleeds, it leads on the news and so forth. That's why we like to do some nice things here and to talk about that. Okay, I'm going to get you again. I'm not until after your wedding.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when you have calmed down.
Correct.
And you'll come back and let's do a half-hour program and talk about what's going on in the community.
Yeah.
Will there be any announcements this fall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But I will say this before we go real quick. The Peaceful Communities Roundtable is planning an event, a public forum, in August, second week of August.
Okay.
We're going to be addressing criminal justice reform. It's an issue that I think everyone can get around.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, my friend.
I'll pray for Meg.
Help me out here, Steve.
Yeah. So, no, it's really good to see you. Thanks for coming in and all that you do for our community. Yeah, and the coffee's always free. Okay. All right, we're going to take a break until next week. We'll see you then. Have a great week, everybody.